So my name's Alexis Eichel. I'm a program supervisor here in the rental assistance department. And Carly Waters is here with me this morning. Carly is our housing navigator, but she will be going on to our client support and empowerment department, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Thank you guys so much for being an affordable housing provider and a partner in our community, and providing housing during these times. It's really important. We could not be as successful as we are with our programs and house almost 11,000 individuals in the city of Tacoma and Pierce County without these really important partnerships that we have with you guys. So thank you so much. So a couple of things about Tacoma Housing Authority that I want to highlight is that we develop housing and real estate. We also have a property management department at Tacoma Housing Authority. I would say about 75% of the units that we own, we manage. We do hire maybe 85%. We do hire out private property management companies to manage the other remaining units that we have. We provide supportive services to our clients, and I will talk to you a little bit more about that. That is through our client support and empowerment department. So when you guys send notices, if there are any lease violations to your resident or our client's assigned housing specialist, they can get a referral over to what we call the CSE department. That's the client support and empowerment department, to get some additional resources that they might need in the community, or like if somebody's income changed, they might just need to understand how to let us know so our portion of rent can change. And then we have many partnerships in the community with our local faith communities, with local nonprofits, housing providers, and just we really rely on our partnerships with our community to serve the community that we're in, right? One really cool thing about Tacoma Housing Authority is we are moving to work public housing authority, which means that we can use our government funding a little bit more flexibly than a traditional housing authority can, to serve our community's needs better. So this is a little bit of information about our CSE department. So again, our clients have access to, it's kind of like the social service wing of Tacoma Housing Authority. So if they need any basic need assistance, like any type of resources you guys can think of, our CSE department is really who has all of that information. And again, our clients, if they need, they can self-refer if they need some additional support, or if we're getting those notices of lease violations from you guys right away, we can also connect them to the CSE department if needed, because we do more than provide like housing dollars. We really, really want to make sure our folks are thriving in the community, and getting all those resources as like students, employees, right? Like neighbors. So we really focus on the whole, not just the housing dollar. So some key relationships and contracts, just so you guys kind of get the big picture here. So Congress appropriates funding and gives that allocation to HUD. HUD awards funding to the public housing authorities. As you'll see, Tacoma Housing Authority is right here in the middle. So that is really important to know. And so some really important relationships and contracts that we'll talk about. So THA has a relationship with our clients, right? So our voucher participants. And when somebody is issued a voucher, they sign program participant obligations, and we'll go over that form here in a little bit as well. So that is a contract between Tacoma Housing Authority and our participants, right? So the next important contract and relationship is with you guys, our housing providers. And so we have what's called a housing assistance payment contract between Tacoma Housing Authority and you. And so that is a really important thing to highlight. And another important contract is a lease agreement between you guys and our participants, right? So those are three separate contracts, essentially. We have one with our participants, we have one with you guys, and then you guys have the lease agreement with the clients. So. And this is an idea of who we serve, right? So we serve over 11,000 people in Tacoma. That is about 5,200 households, and about 1,851 of those households live at our properties that we own, and about 2,500 live in private market units with you guys. So thank you again for your partnership. And these are some of our programs. Today, we're going to talk about the Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is down here. We do have two other additional programs, project-based vouchers and property-based subsidies, and those are attached to the unit. But today, we're talking about Housing Choice Vouchers, and those go with the client, and they get housing choice out in the private market. So, Carly, what's the HCV program?
Okay, so the HCV program, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, formerly known as Section 8, is designed to help low-income families, eligible low-income families, obtain affordable housing and increase their housing choice, giving them more options to go out and find where they want to live. They can select the housing in the neighborhood of their choice from a private market housing provider. The rent subsidy allows families to pay a reasonable share of their income toward rent, while the program here makes up the difference. Okay, so how a voucher works. Tacoma Housing Authority is going to take that housing assistance payment, or HAP, and pay directly to you, the landlord, that payment standard. Then we have our tenant portion, which is going to be 30 to 40% of their income. They're going to pay that directly to you, the landlord. Utilities are going to be paid from the tenant to the utility provider. And yeah. We don't get involved in the utilities.
So another cool thing about Tacoma Housing Authority is we can provide subsidies like in the city of Tacoma and 2.5 miles outside of the city of Tacoma. And we do have a map on our website. And again, I'll send this out to you guys as well. But as you'll see, we can also provide subsidies to folks in parts of Gig Harbor, by McCord Air Force Base, Midland, Fife, but it does have to be in the Pierce County area. Some of our clients who have special purpose vouchers can lease up anywhere in Pierce County. And if somebody comes to you and you happen to have a property outside of our normal jurisdiction and they say that they can lease up in your area, the odds are that they can. We let folks know when their vouchers are being issued to them if they can lease up in all of Pierce County. But you guys won't necessarily know. Their paperwork will not let you know if they have that particular voucher type or not.
Okay, so the Housing Choice Voucher waitlist is open permanently. In the past, it would only open up for certain amounts of time, very long spans of time in between, but now anybody can get their name on it at any time.
And we do have a save your spot. So if somebody applies for the wait list, we send a notice out monthly for them to save their spot. And if for some reason they miss it that month, they can just go back in and reapply and be added to the wait list. So there's not a big deal if they don't save their spot on time once in a while. So.
Okay, so our voucher programs, talking mostly about the Housing Choice Voucher today, and that's again THA assisting low-income households to pay their rent in privately owned units. That comes from the wait list we just talked about. Then we also have our special purpose vouchers. And again, we work those. That is the THA assisted low-income households referred by community partners. So not coming from that waiting list, coming from specific places, like our family unification program. That's going to come from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, DCYF. And then we have like our Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing, our VASH, coming from the VA.
So, and I think we have over 12 special purpose voucher programs. These are just a couple of them to highlight. Yeah. So some benefits for you guys, the housing providers. Let's see here. So we make consistent rental payments. If our client's income increases or decreases, we can adjust our subsidy with that. And you guys will never be surprised about what our portion is and what the client's portion is. We always communicate with you ahead of time. Washington Landlord Mitigation Program. So that's really a great program ran by the Department of Commerce. We do not run the program, but it really is for our clients. So if you're renting to somebody that has a Tacoma Housing Authority subsidy, and for example, the initial inspection requires like $1,500 worth of work before the inspection is passed. The state will reimburse up to $1,000 of that. You would be responsible for the first $500. And they can also provide rent loss guarantee. And then when the client moves out, if the damage is above their damage deposit, if it qualifies, you can get up to $5,000 of reimbursement from the state of Washington. I will send in my follow-up email a video, about a 25-minute video of a training Department of Commerce did for us that explains more in detail about the program. And we do have targeted marketing. So right now we've had a vacant unit listing form that our housing provider landlord partners have been listing units for, gosh, 2 or 3 years, I think. And so those listings go directly to our clients that have vouchers who are looking for housing. We are very active with the landlord associations. If you are a housing provider, I highly suggest connecting with either the Rental Housing Association of Washington, if you have a property management company, NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers, has a great Pierce County chapter here. And we're also housing providers, right? So we understand everything you guys are dealing with in the private market right now. Again, we have over 1,800 units and a property management department. So, and then we have our landlord advisory board. We've had it since 2004, and we really lean on them for any policy changes that we might be making that might affect housing providers. It's a really great place for landlords to have kind of like a support system as well, and talk about common issues that are going on in the private market. We do have a landlord portal now. So if we are making housing assistance payments to you, we will send you a landlord portal registration letter, and you will have access to that. And this is what it looks like. So you'll be able to see any units that we are subsidizing or previously have subsidized. Your profile is here, unit inspection information, and your ledger. So it's really helpful place for you to find all that information. Some more housing provider supportive services. So we have a landlord engagement team. We really value customer service here. And so we try to respond as soon as possible to any requests that you guys have or questions. We have inspections by certified staff. So Tacoma Housing Authority cannot enforce your lease agreements. Again, that's between you and the clients, but we can counsel our participants once you send those lease violation notices to us and remind them of the obligations that they have signed. And we provide tons of education. Let's see what we have for 2026. We have some more landlord tenant law trainings coming up in 2026, the monthly topic-based trainings. So those will be fun.
Okay, so the application process for voucher holders going out looking for a new unit, they're going to go through the application process like any other person looking for a place to live, but they're going to be ready with a copy of their voucher and the estimate at the time of the application. So they're also going to be responsible for any fees, application fees, holding fees, anything like that. So go through the regular screening process, and once a voucher holder is approved for a unit, they are going to give you the RAFTA, the intent to rent, the request for tenancy approval paperwork, and any other fees, anything else will be collected at that time. Once you fill that out in full, which we'll take a look at in just a second, you will then upload that and turn that into the Tacoma Housing Authority. After that happens, we're going to look and make sure that the housing authority, that we verify you're the legal owner, that the rent is reasonable, and that there's eligibility for the proposed unit.
So has anybody had a Tacoma Housing Authority client come apply for a unit here on the call? Okay, cool. So this is going to explain a little bit of how to income qualify somebody that has a subsidy and the source of income discrimination law. Has anybody here heard of the source of income discrimination law? And it's okay if you guys haven't. Only okay. A little bit about it.
Yeah, so basically, as it says, housing providers are not allowed to treat applicants or tenants unfairly or differently just because of where their money comes from. So source of income defined can be these listed right here. Yeah. Housing assistance, public benefits, emergency rental assistance, veterans benefits, social security or retirement programs, and help from government or nonprofit organizations as part of their income. Okay, so prohibitive actions based solely on a tenant or applicant's source of income. Housing providers are not allowed to refuse to rent to someone, evict someone, charge different prices or fees, discourage someone from applying, lie and say a unit is not available when it is, post ads or notices saying they do not accept certain types of income.
Yeah. And so I have not seen this in a really long time where somebody's like no Section 8 in an advertisement, but that's like an example of something you might have seen prior to 2018, I think, when this became a source of income discrimination law.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Okay, then we have our income to rent calculations. So basically, if a housing provider requires applicants to meet an income to rent criteria or a minimum income, they must subtract any rent voucher or subsidy from the monthly rent amount before checking if the applicant meets the criteria. So what that means is someone applies for an $1,800 a month unit, and a provider wants a 300% income to rent, which is
3 times, like maybe.
Exactly, and pretty normal. Almost every listing is going to have that income to rent very often. So the person has a $1,500 monthly voucher. The person must show $900 of a monthly income. Basically, you have that $1,800 rent minus the $1,500 voucher, and that's going to be their amount that they're going off of is going to be that $300 3 times. So dirty money, basically source of income that does not include money obtained by a tenant lawfully.
Okay, so the housing provider contact form, when somebody does come apply for a unit with you that you have, you will screen them like you would anybody else. And then if they pass your screening criteria, you will submit that request for tenancy approval packet online. That is the only way we are able to accept them. You'll do that through the housing provider contact form. In the request for tenancy approval or RAFTA packet, there is a cover letter, and it also has a link of where you can submit it online. If you purchase a property or your property management company taking over property management of a unit or home that one of our clients live in, you will select new owner agent setup or changes. If you are a current THA landlord partner and we're making payments to you and you want to update banking information, you will select that option. If you are having trouble logging into your portal, you'll select portal login help as well.
Okay.
Oh, how the program works. So owner responsibilities, you guys have the responsibility to screen tenants like you would anyone else, right? Maintain the property in good condition, comply with local and Washington state landlord tenant law. And I will tell you again, like, either hire a property management company if you're not going to be an active participant in one of the landlord associations, only to protect yourself. There are a lot of landlord tenant laws, and there are jurisdictional landlord tenant laws also. Like City of Tacoma has stricter landlord tenant laws than Pierce County may have, because those are governed by the state laws. So please, please, please stay up to date on local and state landlord tenant laws by connecting with a landlord association or property management company. Just please stay on top of those. Enforce your lease agreement. Again, we cannot enforce your lease agreement. We are a payment partner with you guys. And it's really important that you send us notices. If you're serving somebody a notice for like non-payment of rent, violating the lease agreement, please send that into their assigned housing specialist. And all rent change requests must be submitted online and approved by Tacoma Housing Authority.
Okay, so our participant responsibilities to the Tacoma Housing Authority, they have committed to show proof of citizenship and eligibility. They have to allow THA and landlord the unit inspection. They cannot own or have interest in the unit. And of course, no corrupt or illegal criminal activity can take place. Responsibility to the landlord is to pay their monthly rent utility bills. That this is going to be their principal place of residence. They cannot sublease the unit or allow anybody else to move in. They need to notify the landlord prior to vacating, and they cannot damage the unit or premises. Okay, so this is a participant briefing. Here, basically, this is to show our voucher holders what's expected of them, what they're committing to. Goes through the program overview, partnership, voucher size and term, and everything we're going here today, shopping for a home, leasing, all that important stuff. You don't have to go through all of it, but important understanding on their part to sign and understand. And every adult who's moving into a unit or on the voucher needs to sign this document.
And one really important thing is like Carly was saying, is that I think number 8 is saying that they must comply with all provisions of the lease and not commit any serious or repeated violation of the lease. And they must pay their family share of rent and utilities. All of our households waited a really long time to get a subsidy from Tacoma Housing Authority. And so I like to think that they hold this in high regard as a participant obligation form, right? And we want everybody to be healthy in this relationship and understand what the expectations are. So this is an example of our payment standards. So a payment standard is the maximum subsidy Tacoma Housing will pay. And this just gives you a really good idea. For example, if you guys pay all utilities and somebody is issued a 1-bedroom voucher, the maximum payment standard or suggested rent range is $1,392. Most housing providers do not pay all utilities. So what we'll do is subtract a utility allowance from this maximum payment standard to determine our payment standard. And so it really varies if you guys are paying water and sewer, things like that. And so we'll go over to our shopping guide to give you a good idea about what they're going to be coming to you with when they apply for housing. So.
Yes, well, one of our voucher holders is shopping for housing. This is what they're going to have as they shop. So this is provided to the household as a shopping guide to help decide if the selected unit is going to be affordable. So here you're going to see in that first column, we'll take over here, excuse me, the maximum suggested contract rent. So that is the maximum contract rent for a unit, depending on who pays the utilities. Alexis mentioned before, not everybody's going to pay all utilities. Some pay half, maybe some housing providers pay all the utilities. So that amount is going to change depending on who pays utilities. Then we have the tenant share of the rent. So the minimum rent, we determine that by the total household income, by our income band. And the lesser of the approved voucher size or unit size, Basically meaning if someone was given a 2-bedroom voucher and they decided to lease up in a 1-bedroom unit, the 1-bedroom payment standard is going to apply just because they had the voucher size of 2-bedroom. We're not going to pay for the 2-bedroom. So THA is going to pay the difference between the maximum suggested contract rent and the tenant share. This is the housing assistance payment, or HAP. You can see down here, it's been estimated that the household income band is $6,000. And then here we have the payment standard. We're going to subtract that minimum rent. And this is our housing assistant payment, or HAP, that will be paid by Tacoma Housing Authority. And then down here, so it says, what if the selected unit contract rent is more than the maximum suggested contract rent payment standard? The amount of rent exceeding the maximum suggested contract rent payment standard is called the payment standard difference. So basically, if someone leases up in a unit that is more expensive than that maximum suggested contract rent, the renter is responsible for that amount. You can see down here that, say, the contract rent is $1,770, but the payment standard is only $1,570. That difference is going to be $200, and that's going to be the tenant's responsibility on top of what their rent already is, their minimum rent amount.
Yeah. And our inspectors, and during the inspection process, they will determine if the rent is rent reasonable as well. That if it's higher than our payment standard. So again,
those voucher payment standards.
Yeah. So completing a request for tenancy approval packet. So common issues we run into when folks submit the RAFTA online is there are 2 separate fields, right? One will ask for the owner's name. If the owner is an LLC, like Tacoma Housing Authority LLC, for example, that is what needs to go in the owner's name. And where it says submitter is like, if I'm submitting the form, I will say Alexis Eichel is submitting this form. So those are 2 common issues we run into. The W-9 needs to be signed and have the correct entity or owner's name on it. And if the property management company is receiving payment directly into a bank account they own and they don't give us a property management agreement or W-9, we will send payment directly to the owner if they don't provide us that information in a short amount of time. And the RAFTA form, which we'll go over here in a minute, it needs to be filled out completely as well. And believe it or not, this form used to be like 20-something pages long, and we narrowed it down to an online form through feedback we got from landlords because it was really hard to work with us in the past, like really hard. Inspections took a really long time, and just moving the process along was really difficult. And we streamlined our processes thanks to feedback from landlord partners, and made the form really easy to fill out, along with the RAFTA paperwork. They're only HUD required forms now.
Okay, so this is a request for tenancy approval, or a RAFTA. So we've been talking about the RAFTA, and ultimately it starts the unit inspection process. So THA must inspect a unit before a voucher holder can move in or even sign the lease. That must pass. An inspector will reach out once we've received the request for tenancy approval in full. Inspector will reach out to you to schedule your inspection. If the unit happens to fail, they will let you know exactly what you need to do and who to call once everything's been repaired and ready to go for a re-inspect. If the unit passes, then you are free to move forward with a lease and moving in the voucher holder. THA absolutely needs a copy of the lease once it's been signed. And so we talked about the HAP contract. Great question is, does THA pay the deposit? We do not pay deposit. That is the responsibility of the renter. Absolutely. And when will you get paid? It may be several weeks before the landlord is paid because the paperwork involved. But we will pay retroactive to the start of the lease, and regular monthly payments will be made directly, like the first of each month thereafter, once we get that initial payment made retroactive.
And our finance department really prefers direct deposit versus checks.
Mhm.
So,
Okay,
all
great.
right.
So now we have the second page of the RAFTA. So this is specific information about the unit, the address. We need all the specifics, request the lease start date, number of bedrooms, year constructed, proposed rent, security deposit amount, and the date, very important, the date it's going to be available for inspection, so our inspectors can know when it's ready to schedule that. We need the structure type. And if it is subsidized, we need to get the type of subsidy indicated there. So when it comes down to utilities and appliances, we need to know each type item here on the item list, who's going to pay for what. And we need that specified with an O for the owner or a T for the tenant, who's responsible for what. So if all this can be filled out in full, that's really, really helpful for us to know every piece of information that we need. So for owners with properties that have more than 4 units, we do have to have you complete the section for the comparable unassisted units within the premises, basically just doing that.
Unit comp.
Yeah, unit comps, essentially. Let's see. Oh, am I missing anything important on this side that we haven't gone over?
Owner, they just need to sign. You guys should sign here. Household should have also signed this as well.
It will most likely be signed, hopefully.
Mhm.
And so unless you are renting a shared housing unit where you're renting out a room in a house, you do not need to fill this out. If you are renting out just one room within a home, then we do need this filled out in full. Okay, here we have our smoke detector carbon monoxide certification, just super important, needs to be filled out and signed. Not even filled out, just tenant name, address, and signed. That each dwelling has at least one smoke detector, one carbon monoxide alarm, or a dual detector carbon. Disclosure of information on lead-based paint and or lead-based paint hazards. Again, if your house was built before 1978, it may contain lead-based paint. So we just need this filled out as well to disclose any of those paint hazards.
So inspection, an inspector will give you guys a call, consult an inspection checklist, and I will send that out my follow-up email, or you can go onto our website, tacomahousing.org, and in the search field, you can look up Housing Provider Handbook, and it will populate our handbook, and in the very back of that handbook is there an Inspire inspection checklist that you can take a look at. The unit should be vacant, move-in ready. We do need somebody present at the initial inspection, and repairs may cause move-in delay. So again, these are our steps. Complete and submit the RAFTA to Tacoma Housing Authority. We'll determine if the unit is rent reasonable, and THA will inspect those units. And once the unit has been approved, which you guys will know right away, and passes the inspection, you can sign a lease with our client, and then you'll send that lease agreement in to their assigned housing specialist. Please never sign a lease agreement until the unit has passed inspection. And so once the unit passes the inspection, it can be over 12 months or month to month. You can determine the length of the lease. Just know in the HAP contract, it is going to reflect whatever your lease agreement is. Again, send that copy of the lease to the client's assigned housing specialist, and they will send that HAP contract over to you. And on our website has a very long list of housing specialists, and they're assigned based on, excuse me, last name. So these ones really apply to you guys. Oops, let me go back. So the alpha caseload right here all the way down to the Housing Specialist SPV list. These are mostly for the other two program types we were talking about, PBS and PBV partners. And this list does change every once in a while, and there was an updated list online. So this is one page of our HAP contract. A couple of bullet points is it requires us to make timely payments, requires you guys to maintain the property, begins on the first day of the initial lease term to the last day. And this is what we will send over to you after, excuse me, after we send over the lease agreement. And then our payments will start after this HAP contract has been signed by you and Tacoma Housing Authority on the next following check run.
Okay, so HAP payments, the first check when HAP contract is sent, prorated payment latter of the date unit passed inspection, the initial lease term begin date, or the first day after the tenant's previous assisted lease ends, and payments are made on the first of each month. Also noted, if a tenant income changes, THA can review and may adjust the HAP to cover the contract rent.
Again, like we cannot enforce your lease agreement, but we can help. Some best practices, follow the process you would with the non-subsidized renters, conduct periodic inspections, right, on your units. And also, as a reminder, we can, upon notice, upon receiving the lease violations, we can meet with the clients to remind them of their participant obligations and refer them over to our CSE department if needed. But we don't know what we don't know. And again, we subsidize housing for a lot of people. And so we really want you guys to enforce those lease agreements and send notices into us right away. There's nothing worse than like us not hearing that somebody hasn't been paying their portion of rent until you guys have to actually go through the eviction process, and then we're receiving like eviction information, right? And then the client will end up losing their subsidy most likely. So please, please, please send us those notices right away. Yep, and after the initial lease, they can go month to month or sign a new lease. If you guys want to change the rent amount, go online to submit a rent change request, and we do have to approve that. We do require 60 days notice of that rent increase. City of Tacoma has a different notification period. Please follow the local and state landlord tenant laws and provide all of your tenants notices of rent changes as well.
Okay, so when it comes to the tenant move out, we need to complete a move out inspection, document the following to the THA: any damage caused by the tenant, monies owed by the tenant, or other expenses, outstanding bills, etc. Again, like Alexis said, we can't take care of it for people, but we can meet with, consult with, and try and help clients, voucher holders. The voucher is conditional upon repayment, and THA cannot make, again, tenants pay for any damages, but we can do our best to help and counsel the resources.
Again, this is the Washington Landlord Mitigation Program. I will send a link out in my follow-up email with a training with more detailed information, but this is another incentive for you guys to rent to our clients, essentially. We have some housing provider resources in our handbook that we have, and there's lots of really good information about how to work with us, landlord tenant help, financial assistance. The different associations are also listed here. And these are different ways you can advertise your unit for our clients. So we have our vacant unit listing form, and the Housing Connector is another really great resource. They provide additional incentives if you sign an agreement with them to relax your screening criteria. They have additional rent guarantee. They also have an additional mitigation program on top of the state's mitigation program, and they will add you can add your units to the Zillow platform for free. Affordablehousing.com is another place you can list your units as well. Please note we don't manage Housing Connector or affordablehousing.com listings. We only, kind of manage our listings, and our listings are not made public. Those are only sent out to people who have actual vouchers and they're looking for housing. So